Are you looking to build wealth and do better for your family and community? In today's video, I'm going to show you how to stop living paycheck to paycheck. So what's going on, guys? It's Josiah, your success consultant, and today's video is about how to stop living paycheck to paycheck. Okay, so first we got to understand this. Why are so many people paycheck to paycheck? You know, everybody's got their ideas and we want to blame this person and blame that person, but we really need to understand what are the top 3 reasons on why so many people are living paycheck and pay to paycheck in society today. So with no further ado, I'm going to go into this topic. Please make sure to subscribe. So first off, you got to be able to understand this. We have been trained to fail. Now, I don't want to make it sound all like conspiracy theorist, and I don't want to make like I'm blaming the man and this, that, and the third about why we're not where we need to be. But you asked me to outline the top 3 reasons why so many people in society today are living paycheck to paycheck. Because this doesn't just include people that don't want to do anything with their lives. I'm talking about folks that have spent so much money going to college, so much time working hard, people who are actually getting boots on the ground, serious about their success, but for one reason or another, it doesn't translate to wealth. So why does that happen? I need you to understand these 3 reasons, because the more that you understand it, the more that you can work around it. The more that you don't understand it, the more that you're going to be a victim to the system, because this is done by design, okay? This ain't no Disney movie. This Black Men's Career Channel is about real life. So the first thing that you need to understand is that the school system, coupled with the 9-to-5 system, has created a poverty system. Okay? Understand this. It created a poverty system. Now, don't cut off the video just yet. I know that there might have been good things that you learned in school, and I am not saying that you need to be anti 9-to-5. But what I do need to highlight in this video is how most of us grew up being programmed to process living in a world that revolved largely around training from the school system to be able to work at a 9-to-5. So if you're living in society today, here's the typical narrative. You grow up, and as you're, in your formative years as a child, you're constantly going through this schooling. From the time that you came out of the womb, you are starting to be taught your ABCs, your 1, 2, 3s. You're starting to go to pre-K and then kindergarten and then all these levels of school. Some people all the way up to PhD and all these advanced degrees, right? So we spent, at a minimum, for most people, you spent on average the first 20 years of your life in school. Whether it was community college, high school, whatever the case may be, you spent up to at least 20 years, if not more, just revolving your mind around school. Now, here's the thing. The way that the school system has been designed has not been designed for you to actually have wealth, okay? The school system has been designed for you to make a living working at a 9-to-5 job. Again, I'm not saying that to be, anti this and anti that. And there's a fine balance, right? I'm not knocking education as a whole, because I value education very strongly. But when you think about the framework and the layout of how the school system is designed, maybe you plan on sharing this video with your parents. You remember growing up, your mom or your dad always told you, go to school so you can make good grades, so that way you could get a good job, so that way you could get a nice house, and that way you could get a nice spouse and, have this and have that. And you constantly found yourself chasing after this mirage of a lifestyle that society calls the American dream, But for so many people, this has now become a nightmare because there's so many people that follow the narrative of going to school for a number of years, myself being one of them. Okay, I'm speaking from experience here. And having gotten to actually paying off $95,000 of student loans, I can safely tell you that that becomes a trap for most people, right? A large portion of the reason why I'm even able to do what I'm doing right now is because I was one of the lucky ones that was able to pay off $95,000 in student loan debt. And from there, I started to make other investments. I started to build and grow my own business. But many of the teachings that I needed to do those things, it did not come from the school system. There was not one class that I took in school that had anything to do with personal finance. Ask yourself the question, in the 20 years of schooling that you went through, did you ever go through a class that sat you down and taught you how to do a zero-based budget? Did you ever step into a class that taught you how to be able to perform your own taxes? Did you ever step into a class that was actually showing you the difference between, understanding things like net worth versus income? Assets minus liabilities. The only way you might have had a taste at being able to see some of that is if you went through a business school, you had to study corporate finance, and somehow along the way you started linking certain terms to your own personal finances. We were not taught in school how to manage our money. We were not taught in school how to be able to build wealth. Why? Because the entire structure of the school system was designed by people that funded it so that way trained professionals could go into the workplace to build corporations, okay? I'll go into the history of that in a different video. Some of you guys have been following me since my Urban Money Movement YouTube channel, and you know that I did a full-blown topic on the Industrial Revolution and how that sparked today's school system, okay? Whole case in point, in today's video, I'm trying to show you that as you transitioned from going decades in schooling to getting to the adult phase of your life at the 9-to-5 job, you actually being groomed to build wealth was never in the equation. You were brought to the 9-to-5 setup so that way you could be exactly where you are today. You're having to go to a job, you're having to work to get your paycheck, which there's nothing wrong with that, but you were never shown how to be able to take those finances and start turning it into wealth on purpose. You were not taught that on purpose, because if you were taught how to be able to build that wealth independently, why would you always have to need to work at a 9-to-5? Why would you always need to get all of these advanced degrees unless it was a super passion if you already had the understanding of how to be able to build streams of income for yourself independently, okay? I'm trying to get you to understand that the reason why most people right now are living paycheck to paycheck is because they were never properly educated about the world of personal finance. And in this life, you're never going to have a lot of something that is beneficial to you if you don't understand how to be able to get it. People don't just wake up one day, check their phone, and then their mobile app has $1 million coming out of the bank account. It doesn't work that way. If people are going to build wealth, they have to know something about the process of wealth building. You follow what I'm saying? You can't just be totally illiterate about the subject of money, but then you just got money just flying down from the heavens above. If you want to be successful when it comes to being able to build wealth, you got to be able to know wealth. You have to have been able to study wealth. And for many of us who was never born with the silver spoon in our mouth, these were things that we were never told. And that's one of the primary reasons why there's such a difference in life between the haves and have-nots. Now, again, I want to make sure that I'm really clarifying what I'm saying. Am I saying that you cannot go from rags to riches, that you're just doomed if you weren't born with a certain level of education? Absolutely not. In fact, that's the reason why I want you to subscribe to this channel right now, because this is your opportunity to be able to self-educate, to learn the things that other communities have been taught, that we have never been taught about how to go about building wealth. Okay? Am I saying that wealth has been amassed in society that in a way that has nothing to do with hard work or valuing education? Absolutely not. What I am saying is there's a reason why one of the success mentors, Jim Rohn, said, formal education will make you a living, self-education will make you a fortune. The reason why he said that to an audience of people that were already making money is because everyone understood that when you go through this pipeline that I'm sharing with you right here, it's not meant to make you rich. It's meant to keep you in this state, poverty, so that way you would always be reliant upon a job in order to be able to get by. This is the reason why so many people are living paycheck to paycheck. Because what happens is they'll get the check on the 1st and 15th, right? They've never been taught fully on how to be able to utilize that money or grow it, turn it into something else, make it stretch. And the money is already gone before the 15th is up on all these different expenses. And they find themselves stuck in the rat trap, okay? This is about you learning how to get out of that rat trap. Not just when it comes to a 9 to 5, it's about you being able to understand that the only way that you're going to have something that you can give back to your family and leave a legacy is by starting to get educated about how to actually get ahead. You're not just going to get that in a college degree. You're not going to get that at the job. Notice how at the job, there's no real, oh yeah, this is the personal finance sit down. You know, we're going to make sure that we check this and check that, right? Most people are even wondering, well, should a job do that? The reason why they're not or never going to do that is because having you as an employee at some level is contingent around how much you need the job in the first place. So it's about dependency, okay? So the second thing that really stops a lot of people from being able to get out of the paycheck to paycheck syndrome is there's too much focus on income and not enough focus on net worth. There's too much money on the income and dollars being made, but there's not enough focus on wealth accumulation. Okay, so I'm gonna write that down. Too much focus on income, not enough on wealth. Okay, so I'm gonna give you an example of what I mean right here, because right now you might be asking, well, Uzziah, isn't wealth based upon a person's level of income? To some extent, yes, but it is not the end-all be-all in this equation. Income and wealth are two totally different things, okay? So I'm going to give you an example. You know, when I was graduating from college and spent a few years working in corporate America, you know, I would have these friends that I went to college with. And a lot of them would be just so laser focused on hitting a certain salary amount. You know, it was like everybody just had to race and mad dash to 6 figures. And the minute that you made that 6-figure income, you felt like, man, the sky was the limit, that you had made it, that you was just living in paradise, right? But what most people don't understand is, you know, you could aspire to a certain income level all day. But if you don't know what to do with the money as you're getting it, your income could only take you but so far. You know, a lot of those exact same people that were spending so much time just bragging and talking about getting to that 100K were the same people that was loaded in debt, weren't taking care of getting out of debt, weren't operating off of a budget, didn't know how much money they had going out. All they saw was the money that they had coming in. And even with all the money that they might have been making, all of the money was gone before the next paycheck. Because one of the things that we've never been taught is that we will always live up to the resource amount that we currently have. That's one of those things that's kind of defined within Parkinson's law. So in other words, you start making $50,000, you're going to probably start spending at a $60,000 level or a $70,000 level. You start making $100,000 and then you want to spend like you're making $150,000, right? You start making $200,000, you want to start spending money like you're a millionaire. And what we always tend to do by default, right, as human beings is we have a tendency to spend beyond our means. And I'm going to go into that in just a second. But what you need to realize is that, building real wealth, it's not just about income alone. Instead of just basing your life around this income, you need to be considering other factors, right? Now, again, if you want to go into a, spiritual discussion, obviously you want to put that first. Obviously, seek ye first the kingdom, everything else will be added unto thee. But even within the framework of just financial discussions, income isn't the whole thing. It's not the whole equation. You got to be able to understand, okay, well, of the money that I am making, how much of this money is actually entitled to me in terms of my assets, what I own, minus what I owe. So you could be making, let's say, $80,000 right now. But if you took out $300,000 in debt in order to make $80,000 a year, would you consider yourself someone that is somewhat well off, right? Now, the sad part about this is most people are living in that type of situation, and because of the fact that they've never been financially educated, they do feel like they're well off because all they see is the check. So they'll start to get the check and they say, you know what, I got to go out and I got to buy the Benz. I got to go out and I got to be able to have, the nice homes. I got to go out and I got to be able to spend here and spend there, not seeing all of the different debts that's accumulating up against them, all because of the fact that they were so busy focused on how much income that they would make, but never taking the time to look at an actual balance sheet and understand that the net worth that's specific to you or your household is based upon how much you own in assets minus how much you owe. And because of the fact that what we owe, especially in this highly consumer type of society, is far beyond how much we own, we end up finding ourselves being paycheck to paycheck. And here's another thing that you got to think about as well, right? Just because you make a certain annual salary, it doesn't actually go into your net worth equation. What goes into your net worth equation is, okay, how much of that do you have sitting in your bank account right now? How much of that do you have, in your 401k or in another investment vehicle? How much of that, what's on paper right now? Because what you could be doing is you could have gotten hired for a job that's offering $100,000 salary. You could get that tomorrow. But if you haven't gotten any checks from it, that doesn't make you worth $100K. Even if you started getting checks from it, it's whatever you have in the bank account minus whatever you owe, whether that be to Sally Mae, whether that be to your mortgage, whether that be to your car. Like, there's so many different debts that we have that we don't even understand what our net worth actually is, because if we took the time to actually find that out, for the average person, your net worth would be in the red because you owe so much more than you own. So I would rather be a person that maybe makes a little bit less money, but actually had more in net worth, rather than being a person that makes a little bit more money, but you're all the way stuck in the red because of the fact that you owe far more than that of the other person. You know, one of the things that we're really going to have to understand as we kind of work out of this paycheck to paycheck system, and I hate to just be the bearer of bad news, if you've already loaded yourself in tons of debt, in order for you to get to a break-even net worth of $0, you're going to have to work hard to just be able to get there, much less being able to get into the black of being able to have a positive net worth, how much money you're actually going to be entitled to or worth, right, for your family, things to be able to leave down to others, etc. You talk about wanting to have an estate, wanting to have things that you can give to your family in the time that you're here. You're working so hard. What do you have to show for it? That's why most people are upset with being paycheck to paycheck, because they recognize that they're going to be working 20, 30, 40 years, right, in a system, but they don't have 20, 30, 40 years worth of assets to be able to hand down to their children, their grandchildren, right, their communities, etc. They don't have anything to show for it. So getting out of the paycheck to paycheck mindset is more important than getting out of paycheck to paycheck numerically. Because once you can get it down in your mindset that you're working with the system, then that's when you can actually start to make a change to make sure that you stay out of the system, right? If you're making good money, but you don't understand that the whole framework of your economic model has been around putting you into poverty, if you don't understand that by you just focusing just on income alone and not at all on wealth, that's putting you paycheck to paycheck, then you're never going to be able to get to a point where you're going to get out of it, because you're not understanding how the game is played. The more you understand how the game is played, the better you can bend the rules and work around them. Okay? So here's the third and final point. And again, you know, if you guys want to be able to find out more about what I'm going into in this video, make sure that you click the link below, as always, to be able to get access to the Empire Builder. It's where I'm going to show you step by step, all for free, how to go about building an empire from scratch, right? So in this Black Men's Careers channel, which you should already be subscribed to, you've already shared it with your friends, you're being your brother's keeper, and you following after these videos, you already understand this is not for you if, you know, you just feel like you're just filthy rich, right? This is if you started from the bottom. It's if you're trying to get somewhere, but you're not there as of yet, and you're looking to your brother to look out for you, to show you the things that we generally have not been taught in our day-to-day affairs. Okay, so when you get into that Empire Builder, it's actually going to show you how to build an empire from scratch, on how to go about finding a better income stream within 90 days, how to go about getting yourself set up with proper financial management as far as budgeting, etc., how to go about actually leaving the current job that you're at and creating a step-by-step action plan to get you into the business or the passive income stream that you want to have. If you don't learn about it, you ain't never going to have it. Okay? It ain't just going to knock on your door. You got to go and work to plant the seeds in your own life. So if you want that Empire Builder, click on it now. Let's go to the third and final point, okay? If you want to be able to ever get out of the paycheck to paycheck scenario, you got to stop living beyond your means, okay? Stop living beyond, sorry, quick adjustment there, your means. In other words, what does that mean? You need to focus on you stopping yourself from being in debt. Okay? Now, there's two things that I kind of want to say about this to make sure that I'm really touching on this point as thoroughly as I need to as we wrap up today's video. You know, there's a lot of discussion about the significance of debt. And then you have schools of thought about there being good debt and there being bad debt. The main thing that I'm going to tell you in this video is that you're always going to be paycheck to paycheck if you always owe the next person money, right? This is one thing that Warren Buffett just plainly says. He says it's hard to go broke if you don't owe anybody any money. So one of the cardinal things that you really want to focus on as a part of being able to get ahead in your life is getting your way out of debt. You know, there's too many people that actually pride themselves in being loaded in debt rather than doing what's necessary to get out of debt. You know, people spend tens of thousands of dollars going out and buying a new car. Well, who told you that you needed a new car? The minute that you buy a brand new car off the car lot, it's 15% less in value the minute that you drive it off the lot. That's called depreciation. It's worth 15% less to you in value monetarily the minute that you take it off the lot. Is that a good investment? If you're not making that much money to begin with, you cannot afford to spend money in certain areas. Even when it comes to how I've went about buying cars. If I can't buy the vehicle in cash, I don't pay for it. Why? Because if I'm going to put my money towards something strong, you know what I'm going to put my money towards? I'm going to put it towards investing in assets that's going to make me money over time rather than lose me money over time. See, this is one thing that most people just don't fundamentally understand. So you got everybody, regardless of their credit, regardless of their income, racing to buy a home, right? And what happened during the housing bust? We understood, or we should have understood during the housing bust, that one of the reasons why the housing bust even happened primarily is because banks were issuing home loans to people that they knew people couldn't afford. All because people wanted to follow the American dream and they just had to buy a home. Why couldn't you just rent a home? Why couldn't you wait until your finances was at the right place to where actually getting a home at the right time would be a better decision? But because of the fact that this society, which is based around you being check to check, because guess what? Check to check means that somebody else is getting rich off of the strength of you being loaded in debt. You being check to check is building up someone else's empire. And so what you got to be able to understand is when you work a 9 to 5, or when you work 40 hours a week, 50 hours a week, 60 hours a week, what you've got to do to provide to your family, where is all of your money going to go? Is it going to go towards enhancing your vision, or is it going to go to enhancing someone else's vision that may even be outside of your community, right? You look at the whole discussion about how much or how often is a black dollar recycled in its own community, meaning how many times do you take a money or the dollar that you make and put it in another black person's hand before it ever leaves your community? Now, when you look at other communities, you got some people that it's double digits before it ever leaves their community, right? You look at the Jewish community, right? You look at the Chinese community. You look at all of these different communities of people that actually have their own economic infrastructure, and the money stays there so that way their family, their children, future generations can benefit off of their hard work. But in your community, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, even though we as a black community spend over $1.4 trillion per year in gross domestic product on all different types of things, well, what does being paycheck to paycheck actually mean in the long term? Okay, it means that you're in a system that's designed to make someone else rich at your expense. So as we're going through this video, I want you to think about this in closing. In everything that we talked about, it's not just about having money. It's not just about, living some flashy lifestyle, because money may not be that important to you, and I get that. But what you do need to understand is, if you want your children, or if you want others that are growing up in your community to live a life better than the one that you came into, then you've got to be able to create impact by using finances as one of those vehicles. There's a lot of life lessons and principles and values and teachings that are very important to impart on them along the way. But if you don't leave them with a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of, how are you going to make their life better overall, right? At least in this life. So are you helping improve the lives of others, or are you taking away? And you may want to do better, but it starts in some ways with getting out of being paycheck to paycheck, all right? So, number one, understand how this system has been designed against you. Yes, I've got a college degree. I've worked at a 9-to-5. And guess what? I did those things with pride. Proud college graduate, proud employee. But guess what? I understood that wasn't the end all be all. I understood that in my life, that might have just been a rites of passage at that time to get me to one level. And then once I get to that level, I'm thinking about the next level. Most people, they cannot see a world outside of this because that's all they know and that's all they want to know. I want you to start knowing how to self-educate yourself out of a poverty system, because you weren't taught it in those institutions. Secondly, don't just think about income. Think about building your wealth overall. And building wealth overall plays into your income level, right? Income is a factor, but it's not the whole enchilada, right? Your net worth is about what you own, ownership, minus what you owe, okay? Your liabilities. Lastly, number three, stop living beyond your means, loading yourself up with debt on things and areas you don't even really need it. Is it so important that you have a brand new car? Why couldn't you buy one that's used? All types of websites that'll be able to give you very good cars that give just as much value, but it's not nearly as expensive. You got folks right now, the average car note is like $300-400. People are spending hundreds of dollars on insurance, hundreds of dollars on gas. Before you know it, in the whole month, you're spending somewhere close to a G just on a vehicle that's getting you from point A to point B. So how are you ever going to be able to get ahead in your life if you spend that much money on an area that's not making you money? It's not an asset, it's a liability, okay? When you spend your money on other things that are liabilities, how is that ever going to help your legacy grow, okay? These are things that may feel good in the short term because we've been programmed to be these massive consumers, but it's going to hurt us and cause a lot of pain in the long run. And you can see that time and time and time again. You probably got family members right now that are going through the pains of working their entire life, but they don't have much to show for it. Not because of the fact that they're not good people, but because of the fact that they've never been taught any better. The change has to start with you. So that's what I charge you to do out of this video. So make sure that you subscribe. Share this with a friend. This is a very, very critical video if we want to be able to do better for our lives, our personal lives, our families, our marriages, our children, our legacy, our community, the world as a whole. All right? If you don't do it, who else will? And if not you, then who? All right? Make sure you subscribe, share this video. See you on the next episode. Take care.